Greetings, everybody. This is the Starving Martian, and today we are looking at the Terminator 2 Judgment Day Endoskeleton action figure with phase plasma rifle, put out by the good folks at Toy Island way back in 1995. Alright, so Toy Island, they were an interesting toy company. They didn't acquire the full rights to a lot of these movies to put out toys. You'll probably know that Terminator 2 action figures were put out by Kenner. I've done a couple reviews on those. There'll be a Terminator playlist under my name if you just click on that. But Kenner put out the main part of the toy line. And they more had figures to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. They had figures that looked like John Connor, and they were able to get some of the actor licenses, that sort of thing, which cost money. Toy Island had a way of acquiring the rights to make some cheaper toys. And so they did it here in Terminator 2, where they did this Endoskeleton. There's also a T-1000 that they did, and an Endoskeleton on a motorcycle, which is pretty darn awesome, if I do say so, but grossly overpriced. They also made a large 15-inch Endoskeleton, which is a sight to behold. But that was about it for their Terminator 2 Judgment Day toy line. And so they did this a few times, like Lost in Space. Trendmasters had the main rights. They did the action figures based on the human characters and the robot and some of the alien creatures. And Toy Island also put out their own version of the robot with remote control, and it was, it was serviceable, but it was noticeably, lesser quality than the Trendmaster robot. So this is kind of their MO, but I do quite like this guy. So let's pull back a little bit, get some more detail on this backer card. He looks really nice on his backer card. Makes a good display just as is. I'm tempted to keep him there, but you guys deserve better than that, so we will be opening him up. But first, let's take a look at the back of the card. We see that this is not a man, a machine. So do not get confused. This is not a man. It's really not. So you get this clip and save card, which I don't know if anybody ever clipped and saved, but basically gives you a rundown on who and what a Terminator is. My favorite bit being this last line down here, which reads, "Your endoskeleton comes fully equipped with a phase plasma rifle." Well, thank you for that. Sounds like something from an infomercial. So these guys are really cheap. You could pick them up for about $8 or $10 after shipping. I got mine for $8 off of eBay. I've seen them going $8, $10. Up to $15, but you don't have to pay that. $10 I think would be the max you want to spend on these things. I've seen samples with KB Toy price stickers on there showing they were at one point marked down to like 3 for $10. And that would have been awesome if you saw them in the store for that price, because these would make a really good army building kind of figure. So let's pop them open. Let's free him from his cardboard prison. There we go. And he comes off pretty smooth and easy. And let's adjust our camera. There we are. And here's our Endoskeleton. And he's pretty cool. He's a nice looking Endoskeleton. So very well detailed. You can see these little bits here, the pistons, and his shoulder blades. It's got a great skeletal face going there. No paint on the eyes, which is unfortunate. A little bit of red glow in there would have been cool. But again, these things were kind of made on the cheap. The limbs feel slightly loose just out of the package, but not terrible. They'll still hold a pose. And as far as mobility goes, this guy's arms can rotate all the way. He's oh good. He's got these bends here at the elbow, which is more than the Kenner figures have. I'll tell you that. He's also got leg articulation and a bend at the knee. So these guys are actually more posable than their better known and more expensive brethren. He comes with the phase rifle, which is very nicely done. Let's see if he holds it well, though. Not a perfect grip, but he will hold it, and shake him around. It doesn't come loose, so really, what more do you want? Like I said, this guy would make an excellent army building figure if you want like a whole display of exoskeletons marching on. And I know they've had a more recent version from I think React Toys that's probably slightly more authentic, but it also to me appears a little bit slimmer in the shoulders. Now I like my exoskeletons to be big and wide in the shoulder area because when I was a kid I used to have the Terminator 2 arcade game for the Nintendo Game Boy. And that was a first-person shooter where these things would pop up and you'd have to blast them. And they always, to me, seem to have these huge shoulders, and they're just massive. And that's what this guy reminds me of a bit. So I do quite like him. Now, for size comparisons, as I said, he is smaller than his Kenner counterparts. So here he is next to Hot Blast Terminator, who we've already taken a look at. And yeah, this looks like some kind of take your child to work day. Remember, when you really want to burn somebody, you'll say, "Hasta la vista, baby." Dad, like, nobody talks like that anymore. Oh, you're embarrassing me. Well, at least I can stand on my own. Alright, so this guy's more, in size-wise, he's more in line with like a Star Wars figure, which is pretty cool. You could finally have that Luke Skywalker versus Terminator fight that I know you've always wanted to have, because who doesn't? I looked around. I know I have some loose Star Wars figures, but all I could find was some Yodas. But here is a Spock from Star Wars, or Star Trek rather, the motion picture, who was made on the same scale. So you can see they do look good together. Size-wise, the Terminator is a little bit taller, but you know, that's as it should be. So this will scale good with any of your Star Wars figures, any of your G.I. Joes, things of that nature. I also think it's amusing if you take the Lost in Space Will Robinson figure here. Yeah, he could almost pass as John Connor. Hair's different, but alrighty. Now, like I said, they did also make a T1000 figure. It's the same gray because it's in a liquid metal form, and it's relatively cheap as well. I plan on getting my hands on one of those within the near future. So when and if that happens, I'll be sure to let you know, so you can see how they look together. But on its own, I think this is a really nice figure. I do appreciate the extra joints, the knee joints, the elbow joints that the Kenner figures lack. It's very simplistic. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't have any action gimmicks. And again, I appreciate that because, as we've seen, these, especially the spring-based gimmicks, do not hold together well. And he's a little bit fiddly, I think, to get to stand. But once you do, he seems to hold a pose pretty good. So, yeah, I would definitely recommend picking this guy up. If you have the money, I would recommend picking up 3 or 4 of them. It's not a bad exoskeleton at all. So, gang, this has been the Starving Martian, and giving you a peek at my endoskeleton. Until next time, keep watching the skies.